welcome into First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolf. That's the Hall of Famer Chris Carter. That is Nick Wright. It is Monday. We got 2 games of the NBA Finals in the book.
Yep.
We are well on our way towards.
We might be halfway done with them. I hope we're not, but we might be halfway done with them.
All right. Good weekend?
Great weekend. Absolutely. Okay. Great weekend. Fun. Good golf tournament to watch. Good basketball to watch.
Every day's a holiday in my life.
There you go.
So positive.
What a great
Just a
outlook.
breath of positivity, CC.
What a big whopper lie. Here comes
Hey, how did the Cavs and Warriors follow up an insane Game 1 of the NBA Finals? Yes, with Game 2, but it wouldn't be as dramatic, and the Warriors made sure it wouldn't be as close. While LeBron followed up his 51-point performance with a modest 29, Steph Curry carried the Warriors 33 points, including 9 three-pointers. That is an NBA Finals record. And get this, under Steve Kerr, they're 109-8, 109-8 in the playoffs and regular season when Steph scores 30 or more. Again, under Steve Kerr. More now from people who aren't me.
I wouldn't necessarily say surprise. He's a big shot taker, big shot maker, tough shot taker and tough shot maker. And he did that tonight. The one where he was falling away I wouldn't necessarily say surprised about that, but it's like, oh, man, he really got it going. But, we've seen this before, where he completely just takes the game over with his scoring ability. And, he did that tonight.
He was tremendous and 9 threes and seemed to hit a big shot every time we needed one. But, yeah, he was fantastic.
So, CC, the Warriors have looked a little more like the Warriors that we've come to know over the course of the last couple of years. How were they able to win Game 2 so convincingly last night?
Well, the first way is defensively, the Cavs couldn't figure them out, especially early. Too many layups, too many dunks at the rim. The Warriors didn't have to depend on their great shooting early. They were getting everything they wanted as far as layups. The inability to build a switch defenses for the Cavs was a problem. And the lack of support for LeBron James continues as we see this series go on. LeBron, I thought that he would have to come back from 50 points. So he was a distributor in the game. He was effective offensively, but the concentration of Warriors, what they were going to do in the lane, they wouldn't let LeBron ISO. They did a lot. They took a page out of Boston's book from Brad Stevens, where when LeBron had the ball, if they weren't in the high pick and roll, there was at least 3 guys in the lane, and the other guy was close to the lane. So these were the things that the Warriors made adjustments when you're in series like that. That's what you see teams do from Game 1 to 2. They knew they got away and stole game number 1. But I thought they would come out more focused in game number 2 with an intensity defensively that the Cavs had in game number 1, the Warriors had in game number 2, which led to the victory, Nick.
Well, and I know we're going to talk a ton about Steph, but I want to add to the defensive point because the Warriors in Game 2, they were trapping LeBron when they could. They were doubling him near half court at times when they could. And the only quarter all game the Cavs actually won was the quarter the Warriors have won this whole postseason, the third quarter. Why was that the one quarter the Cavs won? Because that was the one quarter when LeBron was trapped, when LeBron was doubled, and he found the open man repeatedly. Those guys were either hitting the shots LeBron created or making the extra pass to an open three-point shooter. The Cavs hit 9 three-pointers in this game. They hit 5 of them in that third quarter. It's a smart game plan by the Warriors. LeBron still almost got 30, but they basically said, we are going to spend our entire defensive effort on containing you and see if JR can hit shots. See if George Hill can hit shots. See if anyone other than Kevin Love can hit shots.
Wait, they didn't do that in Game 1?
Game 1, they weren't doubling him near half court.
No.
They weren't trapping him. They were playing him more straight up. They let Kevin Durant guard him one-on-one, which is what Durant did in last year's finals. They let Draymond have chances at him. And last year, of course, they had Iguodala. They didn't have that in Game 1. But no, they changed the way they guarded LeBron, which made LeBron more of a distributor. He got the 13 assists. He could have had 20. Guys missed shots. And so it's exactly what I would do if I were Golden State. I think it's smart. And then you have the fact that Steph erupted in the fourth quarter. Like, everyone, today's going to be the Steph day, and I understand that. It was the fourth quarter. Going into the fourth quarter, he was 6 of 18 with 17 points.
Yes.
And then he beat the brakes off the Cavs in the fourth quarter. Period, point blank. He was unconscious in the fourth. And Dre mentioned the shot with the shot clock winding down, which is a backbreaker. Oracle erupts. You feel like, oh, my God, we had a great defensive possession. Here's the thing. Yeah, there's some luck involved. Man, I've watched Steph Curry warm up. I've watched Steph Curry practice. He practices those situations. He has the coaches roll balls out to him at odd angles where he picks it up and just tosses it up. So, yeah, that is a lucky shot, but it is less lucky for Steph than any other player in the league. Like, there's some luck involved in any of those, but he practices that.
Yeah, it would have been lucky if the ball hit off the backboard at the top.
Sure.
All right? Hit off the shot clock and went in. But if you look at Steph's motion, he has that's his natural shooting motion. Like, that's what he's going to do. Great shooters, they make things happen. So, to me, it doesn't have much to do with luck.
Maybe luck's the wrong word.
I'm going to change that from your vocabulary.
Okay, fair enough.
Because the higher level we talk about, less luck has to do with.
My point is that's any shot you make at the end of the shot clock that's not what the offense wanted. That wasn't their plan going into that possession. But as far as
now, if he had made the one left-handed, the one they gave him the ball, where he tried to get a lean in the foul,
and they just said Warriors ball. But the point I was trying to give him credit there, like there is less luck involved in Steph making that shot than any other player in the league because he practices those shots because he is able to keep with his shooting form. And we saw once again, Jenna, there are two sounds Oracle makes: a regular Warriors run and a Steph Curry Warriors run. They love this guy, and he elevates that crowd and his team to a level unlike any of his teammates.
Did it feel like the Warriors were a little more balanced in this game than in the last couple games we saw where they needed a breakout quarter to either get back in or to take this game? Did it feel like, or did they not get what the Cavs probably wanted to put out there? Obviously, they struggled defensively.
Well, the Warriors knew exactly what they wanted to do. They knew that they were going to slip on the pick and roll offensively. They knew they were going to slip the pick and roll and try to get as many buckets at the hoop early. That's what they were able to do. Kevin Durant said before the game, he took some bad shots in game number one, said he's going to be more selective, and you saw that with him. Klay was typically doing what Klay did. When they needed a bucket, he went on a couple little runs there to give them a little boost before Steph got hot, because if people aren't careful, you'll think that, man, Steph was like LeBron in game number one. He wasn't. He had a good fourth quarter, and his shooting percentage still was not a very good one. Right. But when you have the 9 threes in the game, I would say Steve Kerr and what they wanted to get offensively, they were able to get the type of looks that they wanted. And early in the game, it was so easy for them that all they needed was one of these players to catch fire, and that's what happened in the fourth with Steph.
It was odd because the Cavs win that third quarter. They go into the fourth only down 7 after being down double digits at the half. And it never felt to me like the Cavs were ever in this basketball game. Like, right, I don't know if it felt like that to you. It felt to me like the Cavs were, and I should say they went in the fourth quarter down double digits. They got it down to 7 in the fourth quarter. It felt to me like the Warriors were in firm control the entire game. And the person who put them in control was Kevin Durant. Durant was extraordinary through 3 quarters. He was doing exactly what Golden State's asked him to do. High efficiency shots. He shot 70% from the game. Rebound and assist. Remember those 3 games against Houston where he had a combined 1 assist? He had 7 last night. Durant was excellent quarters 1 through 3, and then Steph was absolutely transcendent in the fourth. That's how you get the blowout victory.
I think the question we all want to know is how the Cavs would respond after what happened in game 1. You know, would they be motivated by it because they got so close, or would they be deflated because they got so close and weren't able to pull it out? How do you think they responded?
Well, number one, you can never recover from giving a game away. In a series against a team that has more talent than you, has better shooters than you, has a better resume than you, you can't give away one game. Now, JR, it seemed like he woke up a little bit as far as he at least acknowledged to his teammates that he made a mistake. I thought that was very, very important as far as before the team could move forward. But he's played like he did not only through the postseason, but the way he played through the regular season. JR has been awful. Like, so even though they did give away game number 1, JR played exactly like he's played for the last 5 months. So it's hard for me to say, yeah, they did recover, But this series, when you give away a game, I believe that was going to be fatal. Like, the only chance they had to win was build a steal game number 1. Now it's a matter of the Warriors in game number 3. Can they get one of those games? Because they're just looking to win one game in Cleveland and close them out in game 5.
And as an added bonus for Golden State, when JaVale McGee, who you insert into the starting lineup, and Sean Livingston, your first guy off the bench now that Iggy's out, when those guys take 11 shots, and they make 11 shots. And those two guys combine for 22 points, while Jeff Green, J.R. Smith, Larry Nance, Kyle Korver, Jordan Clarkson, those 5 guys combine for 16 points on double the shots. There aren't paths to victory, especially when Durant shoots 70% and Steph has a 16-point fourth quarter.
All right, we're going to talk a lot more about this, but the Warriors are now up 2-0 over the Cleveland Cavaliers in the best of 7. Coming up, was the ending to Game 1 still looming over the Cavs last night? That's next on First Things First. Back here on First Things First, we'll get to LeBron James in a minute. But first, Steph Curry, watch this, guys. Drawing the double team, finds the wide-open Jordan Bell for the dunk.
Man, they were getting everything they wanted at the rim, from the opening tip to
I thought he stepped out of bounds. Watch his heel on this shot.
Man,
I saw this during the game. Watch his right heel. Tell me that 15 don't step. Oh, tell me he's not out of bounds.
You mean like the back-breaking Klay Thompson 3 in overtime of Game 1, or you mean like the shot that went off Steph, obviously, in the second quarter of Game 2?
I need to talk to the commissioner, man. The refereeing in this series.
Ridiculous.
Say that again.
In one direction. Repeatedly.
Hold on, refs. Hold on.
Hold on, Steph.
More Steph here. Loses his handle. Still able to hit an amazing 3 before the shot clock goes off.
See, Steph's the only player in league history that, whether it be this shot or the shot at the end of halftime, the end of the first half of Game 1, that when it leaves his hand, I'm like, oh, that's going to go in. Mm-hmm. Like, I expect those shots to go in.
And that's also like the used-to-be dunk that energizes the crowd.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Finally,
right.
LeBron James. First he hit KD with the spin, then he hits JaVale McGee with a spin.
My wash machine don't have 2 spin cycles.
Then he just makes the layup and one.
It just got 1. Like right there, I'm done.
1, 2.
This was the 8th different layup LeBron made and got fouled on. The only one they called, though.
All right, sticking with the finals, the Cavs find themselves now in an 0-2 hole despite having the best player in basketball. LeBron James, 29 points, 13 assists, which seems meh by LeBron's supernova standards this postseason. His teammates shot just 39% from the floor. That's neither good nor surprising, frankly. Here's what LeBron had to say after the game.
Well, I think at the end of the day, we have a Game 3 to play. And, we got an opportunity to go home, and we played, some really good basketball on our home floor. But, that shouldn't give us any comfort. We should still be uncomfortable with the series as we were in Game 1 and as we were tonight.
So, CC, we touched on this a little bit earlier. Do you think the Cavs took any part of Game 1 with them into Game 2, and probably not the good part? Do you think it affected them in any way? Was it still looming over them?
Well, it's really hard to say the mindset of a team that's been to 4 straight championships. How would they be able to recover from a game that they actually outplayed the Warriors? But given the extra day, which we had between game number 1, they're professionals. I didn't see that like lingering on. I thought JR was still the JR. I didn't think that he was not being aggressive. So I think what happens to him is really the tall tale sign of, did it linger on? And with him, he played exactly the same way.
It's hard to tell if it's lingering with JR because he's been egregiously bad all year.
Right. I didn't think it affected them. I didn't think it affected the rest of the team. They had a good game plan. They were within 8 points late in the game. So if they had gotten off to a sluggish start or something, the Warriors came out playing some good basketball. The Cavs hung in there. LeBron was trying to probe to see where he could go offensively, what he needed to do. So, no, I don't think there was an effect from game number 1 into game number 2. And it's hard to prove something like that when you have 3 days between two games.
Listen, LeBron called that Game 1's loss one of, if not the most devastating loss of his career. And this is a guy that obviously, famously, has lost 5 games to lose an NBA Finals. And he called this one, Game 1 of an NBA Finals, maybe the most devastating loss of his career. But his level of play was at the exact level it's been all postseason. Extraordinary. Why was the loss so devastating? Well, he knows since the Warriors added Kevin Durant, they've never won in that building. Never won in that building. Going into game 1, they were 0-5 in that building. Now they're 0-7 in that building. He knows how rare of an opportunity that was. But I agree with Chris in that JR is the guy you would think is going to have, no pun intended, a hangover from this. But JR scored all his points in the first quarter.
Yes.
JR actually was fine in the first quarter. He was terrible after that. Jordan Clarkson's not going to have a hangover from game 1 because Jordan Clarkson doesn't know what team he plays for, no matter what the game is. He played exactly a Jordan Clarkson game. Kyle Korver, unfortunately, played what Kyle Korver's been against this team in the finals, which is borderline unplayable. Love was a 20-10 guy in game 1. He was a 20-10 guy in game 2. The difference to me was LeBron didn't get 50 because the Warriors changed their game plan, and the Cavs defense was worse this game than it had been in game 1.
So that's the takeaway. LeBron James needs to score 50 points for the Cavs to have a shot because you're not going to get anything else from the rest of his team.
The Cavs were in this game. Like, they had a shot in the fourth quarter. And LeBron or someone else having a huge quarter, that's the only thing that stopped it from going down to the wire. So LeBron still needs to get where is Jeff Green? The Jeff Green from Game 7 started for Kevin Love. Did they bring him to Oracle? Mm-hmm. Because he didn't make a positive contribution. So LeBron still needs help from the other players. I thought LeBron approached the game the right way as far as how many shots he was going to take and how he was going to distribute the basketball.
You think the Cavs could have won with the same stat line that LeBron had last night?
What do you mean? I don't understand.
Because he said it wasn't just on LeBron, but that maybe the other guys need to step up. But the other guys
the stat line would have been.
And Kevin Love's not going to give you another 15, 20 points.
Well, there's not you can't. Their game plan can't be LeBron score 50.
Of course.
And so last night the stat line would have been different. He would have had more assists, had guys hit more shots. But the Jeff Green thing is real. He's shooting 31% in this series. The Cavs don't have a perimeter player shooting 40%, much less 50% for the series. Now. And here's the thing. We know what we're going to get from LeBron. LeBron in the last 2 NBA Finals. So against this team, LeBron in the NBA Finals, since Kevin Durant got there, we can show it to you. He's given you 35, 11, and 10 on 56% shooting. But look at the record. They're 1-6. You can't play at a higher level than LeBron is playing, and they're 1-6. Why? It's the same story. And last year they at least had Kyrie, but there's not going to be, there at least thus far has not been, the reliable other guys that you can say, okay, LeBron's going to give you is between 30 to 40 points. Where else are we getting the offense?
Yeah, and let's not forget, they're going against one of the greatest teams that's ever been put together. So you can't think, man, LeBron's got to do. No, it's on the other people. It's a team sport, and the other guys have to make contributions, and LeBron's not. He didn't get that in Game 1 or in Game 2.
Is there too much then being placed on LeBron?
But that's been the story all year.
Yes,
Jenna.
it has. And the other stories, the same. It's always the same stories with this team. There's no supporting cast. It's LeBron and 1 in every game. The and 1 is probably going to be Kevin Love. Sometimes it's Jeff Green.
Right, but it feels to me like there was never a reason to believe that the Cavs' other guys were going to get better as the competition got harder. Now, Chris and I battled all year long whether or not the other guys were going to be so bad to prevent them from even getting to this point. But I, as call it a LeBron James acolyte, whatever you want to say, even I didn't think they could be competitive in this series. That's why Game 1, whether or not it was deflating for the Cavs, whether or not the Cavs were able to get over it, the NBA viewing public, I don't think, got over it. Because I think the NBA viewing public knew the path to a competitive series was the Cavs not stealing that game, just not giving that game away or having it taken from them, depending on how you look at it. Because you wasted an all-time great performance from an all-time great player. I don't look at this box score last night and say, oh, well, here's why the Cavs will be fine. It's not like JR is going to go 2 for 9 again. No, on the road, he probably will. Oh, it's not like Jeff Green's going to go 2 for 7 again. No, on the road, he probably will.
Well, could you, either of you, look at this box score and say, okay, I could take something out of this, at least maybe something little, and give myself a shot to think the Cavs have any chance to be competitive in this series?
Yeah, I look at see the attendance, I see where the game was played, and realize it's not going to be there.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
All right? That's what I looked at from the stat sheet. All right, that's the only thing. The Cavs have played better at home. And that's what you can rely on in game number 3 in a must-win for the Cavs.
And they still have the advantages on the offensive glass that they had in game 1 and game 2. They beat them by nearly 10. I think they had 9 more offensive rebounds in game 1. They're actually doing a decent job of taking care of the basketball. They're not turning it over a ton. Now, the Warriors have been better than they typically are at that as well. But there are also sometimes this is a simple sport. And sometimes when KD shoots 70% and gives you 26. Clay, who you didn't even know was going to play. You and I were talking before the game, and we thought, okay, if he plays, he's going to be limited. He didn't appear to be limited at all. Clay gives you 20, and then Steph...
On 13 shots.
On 13 shots. And Steph is having an awful game through 3 quarters. He was 6 of 18 from the field through 3 quarters, and he leaves the game as the overwhelming favorite to win Finals MVP because he was so good in the 4th. You're going to lose that basketball game. Like, I don't want to underplay it, but it's not, to me, it's not that surprising that last night went the way it did.
All right, Steph was great. Kevin Durant was great, too. Coming up, KD opens up about why he went to the Warriors. That's next on First Things First. Every day. Time for some stories to start your morning. Last night, the others for Golden State really stepped up. JaVale McGee was put in the starting lineup for Kevon Looney, and he responded by going 6 for 6. Sean Livingston also was in there, and he went 5 for 5. Those guys are perfect. Nick, what'd you make of their contributions last night?
It was critical for Golden State, especially to keep the margin early. My other commentary on that is, Sean Livingston, if you have bet on the other team or you're rooting for the other team, every time he hits a jump shot, it feels like 6 points. Because they're always contested. It's that herky-jerky mid-range flick of the wrist at the top, and it feels like in the finals he's shooting 100% in these finals, 80% in his career on those shots.
Yeah, Livingston's been a great pickup for them. He's been very consistent. You expect good play out of him. JaVale McGee is like finding money on the subway. Yeah. Like, is this real money? Is this counterfeit? Is this a setup? Is there a camera? Because JaVale will be back to normal in game number 3.
At the end of the 3rd quarter last night, Steph Curry fired off a last-second three-pointer, landed near Kendrick Perkins. All 17 feet of Perkins didn't move out of the way. After the game, a couple of Warrior players took exception to Perkins not moving, calling it dangerous. CeCe, what'd you make of this?
Yeah, the Warriors are always complaining. Now, how dangerous was it? Like, okay, like, seriously. Like, he wasn't on the court, like, in a danger. I watched the Warriors. Now, they get in dangerous fashion on the court. Their bench, like, I watched their bench more so. Kendrick Perkins is there. They don't like Kendrick. They didn't like what happened in game number 1. Also, he's got some history with Kevin Durant because he knows KD from OKC. So he's like, I know these guys aren't tough, but they try to act like they're tough when the lights come on.
Steph was nowhere close to landing on Perkins' feet. When he was walking up court, Perkins didn't move his legs back like when someone's trying to pass you in a theater aisle or something. Listen, man, Perk's not going to do anything nice for you, but your point's the important one. Zaza Pachulia jumps up off the bench and yells in people's ear. Kendrick's not doing that.
Back in February, when the Cavs traded for Rodney Hood, he was expected to be a key cog in their lineup. This postseason for the Cavs, he's averaged just 4 points per game. Very non-cog-like. Entering game 2, Hood said this is the first time in his life that he's been getting DNPs. Talks about his playing time. Nick, what do you make of Hood's comments?
I understand his frustration. I know he refused to check into the game back in round 1, I believe it was, and since then, or back in round 2, he's been out of the rotation. But if I'm Rodney Hood, I'm like, man, JR threw hot soup on a coach. He can't lose his starting job. I make one mistake, I can't get back on the court. Now, he was playing very poorly, but not as poorly as some of the guys like Jordan Clarkson getting minutes. I understand his frustration.
No, I understand his frustration. He's an important part in his career. He's in the last year of his contract. Yep. Utah gave up on him in the trade. We thought coming to Cleveland, he's more athletic. He can score the ball. They're having problems with wing players, no athleticism, and lack of scoring.
Speaking of the Cavs supporting cast, outside of Kevin Love, they're just not good. JR still searching for a shot. Like, where did he put that thing? CeCe, what do you make of the Cavs supporting cast struggles in game 1 and 2 and all the other games?
No, this is not news. This is what I've been talking about all season. They're not a great basketball team. They have one great player. The supporting cast on the road, they don't show up. So, no, I'm not surprised at all. That's why I thought it was hard to impossible for them to win this series. The Warriors are very, very talented. And I believe there's at least 3 or 4 teams with more talent than the Cavs have. This just happened to be the matchup because the Cavs came out of the West. They deserved that in winning that 7-game series against the Celtics. But this is not a real talented team, not a team that matches up well against the Warriors. And just because we saw game number 1 and then we saw the blowout in game number 2 late, I haven't changed what I said for you. I would be surprised if it went 5 games. Like, I thought this was going to go 4 games, and nothing's changed, Nick.
Listen, some of the supporting cast stuff, there's nothing you can do. Like, Jeff Green has earned his minutes, especially with what he did in Game 6 and 7. He's shooting 31% this series. That's a bad beat, as I would put it. Like, there's nothing you can do about that. Kyle Korver absolutely earned opportunities in this series by what he did being the Cavs' second-best player leading up to the finals. Mm-hmm. He's shooting 16%. Not from 3, from the field, 16%. I mean, you got JR shooting 26%. Now, he was only shooting 36% for the playoffs prior to this. But 36 is awful. 26 is unplayable, but he's still going to play 35-plus minutes.
I blame that on you.
Why? What'd I do?
Because you said in the Pacers series, oh, they can't play worse. Then they came back and gave you a series. Mm-hmm, then you went all back in after the Raptors series, and then you're like, oh, they can't play worse. The Celtics, and then now in the finals, the supporting class has played worse.
Fair enough, but I want to bring up one guy who I blame him, and I blame the coach for playing him. Can we show this Jordan Clarkson highlight for a moment, please? Here's Jordan Clarkson in garbage time.
You mean video, because there can't be a highlight.
Well, here's why it's relevant. Jordan Clarkson in garbage time yesterday. Watch this. So why are we showing this nothing play? Jordan Clarkson passes to Rodney Hood. He gets a layup. Why would we show that on television? That was Jordan Clarkson's first assist since the Toronto series. The Toronto series. Since then, he's played almost 120 minutes. He's taken 57 shots. I don't even think that's an assist, but they gave it to him. They gave him an assist on that play.
I mean, you talking about a stat stuffer.
Since the Toronto series, Jordan Clarkson, Tom Haberstroh pointed this out, has played nearly 120 minutes. He's taken 56 shots. He now has 1 assist. He has, for the playoffs, the 3rd worst true shooting percentage of any player in playoff history.
Wow.
Why he is still their first guy or second guy off the bench is a move. I think Ty Lue is an underrated coach, but this is an inexplicable move. When LeBron's playing the whole game, if your point guard goes out, you don't have to put another point guard in. And if you need another wing player, that's where I would give Rodney Hood a shot. That's where I would give my guy, Jetty Osman, a shot. I would dust off Jose Calderon before I would play Jordan Clarkson another minute. He's been awful.
Well, I'd love to know who you guys think, who you'd like to see. Not that there's just a bevy of options, but who you'd like to see either have more of a role, less of a role, obviously, besides Jordan.
There is no more or less a role for any of the players. The Cavs role players will play better at home. LeBron will play a great game. There is no mystery. He played 100 basketball games. There's no bus coming. We got Coach Pagano coming. He'd be like, hey, man, ain't no cavalry coming to save you. Like, these are the players you have, and you can't just make up stuff. It's not hocus pocus. You don't get to the finals and change your identity. This is the Cavs teams that we saw. Oh, they were the best seed, the first seed in the East. No, they weren't. The second seed. No, they were the 4th seed in the East. This is what you should expect in a final against one of the best teams that we've seen.
And the Warriors right now, aside from Nick Young, their worst field goal percentage of anyone in their rotation is Steph at 45%. And he's right now the Vegas favorite to win Finals MVP. Flip side, the Cavs don't have a single perimeter player shooting 40%. They got 3 guys in the rotation shooting less than 30%. Like, Love's been fine. LeBron's been great. Nance and Tristan have been okay. And the entire perimeter unit has been disastrously bad.
All right, more on last night's game now and a peek into Kevin Durant. Found his stroke, 26 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists. The Athletic recently published an in-depth look into KD's decision to join the Warriors back in the summer of 2016. Durant said that, quote, validation from his peers was a big motivation in his decision to join Golden State because caring is sharing. Nick, what's your reaction to Durant's comments?
My reaction is I'm glad he shared this because fans of the league, just people that read this, should make everybody feel better in this regard. It doesn't matter how rich you are, it doesn't matter how famous you are. A lot of people are dealing with the same issues. Kevin Durant was, before he went to Golden State, a 4-time scoring champion, 6-time All-NBA, been to the NBA Finals, been to 4 Western Conference Finals, was widely considered one of the 3 best players in the sport. And he asked the Golden State Warriors, why do you want me? Like, that is it. And the fact that he would share that, I mean, it is insight into whatever insecurities or whatever need for validation he has that I think a lot of people have. This is not, when I say insecurities, I am not taking a shot at Kevin Durant at all. I think it's admirable that he shared this. I think people look at it on his face and say, this is crazy. How would you not think teams would want you? You're one of the best players alive. But Kevin Durant needed to hear it. He needed to, he said, hear from his peers how good they thought he was. I would think winning MVP would get you that. All those scoring titles would get you that. But for KD, it didn't.
I'm not surprised at all. He's just like most human beings. Most people that I meet, they need validation. Now, I can relate to it as if, because I've played with a lot of athletes. And even though they have unbelievable talents, unbelievable skills, a lot of them have very, very low self-esteem. And they need the roar of the crowd. They need either their peers, coaches, to be able to lift them up. Now, for me, I'm not that type of person. I don't need all that. I'm self-motivated. You don't need to tell me. I could care less how you feel about me. As long as if I'm providing a service for you, if I'm doing something, I believe that I'm going to work hard enough that you're going to respect what I do. But I can respect what Kevin Durant, because I've met a lot of athletes that are exactly like this.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you, because when you said you're not surprised you met a lot of athletes like this, when we were talking about, I think it was James Harden, whomever it was in the last round, and I said, listen, shouldn't this guy think he's the best player in the world? And the point, or it may have been KD even, and your point was, man, don't you think most NBA superstars think they're the best in the world? That seems like, and I think that's more along the lines of your mentality. You went out there every week saying, man, I'm going to be the best football player on this field. I'm going to be the best wide receiver in the league. Like, this is how I carry myself. This is who I am. That is a big, to me, dichotomy between that mindset and the mindset of, man, do you want me? Do you like me? Like, so do you just put those like two different?
Well, I think that because you have to know Kevin Durant. You have to know where he came from. He came from D.C., but he's not really a street kid, all right? He decides to go to University of Texas. Very, very strange choice, because people pretty much knew he's going to be one and done. Now, people don't realize he struggled as far as his high school scores, so Texas was one of the few schools that would take the chance and allow him to, because the test, you run out of time taking the test. But they were willing to wait on it. The last chance he took taking the test, he passed it so that he was going to be eligible. He was amazing in college basketball. Then he goes off to where? Seattle. Then he's partnered with Russell Westbrook. So the narrative was people don't like Russ, so he thought people didn't like him. I had said this a long time ago, and it's not a negative comment. After meeting his mom and spending some time with her, Kevin Durant's a mama's boy. A lot of us grow up to be mama's boys. There's nothing wrong with that. So he's a guy. He's not a big city guy. He got comfortable in OKC. He got a lot of criticism because who his partner was in Russ, that he thought people didn't like him because they didn't like Russ. So I'm not surprised. There's a lot of athletes. There's a lot of talented people that I see every day. They need to be boosted up. They need their confidence to come from other people and outside of themselves, because they don't believe that they're great at what they do.
And so much of what we've learned about KD this year feeds into his insecurities, just the Twitter accounts and responding to what people say. And anytime you're more concerned with the way people feel about you, which is basically what he's done, his relationship with Russ, all the whole cupcake war, like the need to write stuff on your shoe, a lot of it comes from him maybe not thinking or not playing like he's the best in the league.
There was also an interesting comment, if you follow some of the Warriors beat writers this weekend on a podcast, where I think it was Marcus Thompson, but I might be wrong about which beat writer it was, when he was asked about KD re-signing in Golden State. Because people should know KD could leave this offseason. Now, nobody's talked about it because nobody thinks it's even a possibility. And he said, if you'd asked me 2 months ago, I said it's 100%. He said, now I've got it somewhere in the 90s. And so I would be shocked if KD goes anywhere. But the reason he brought up that it's now at least the door slightly ajar is this type of thing. And by that, I mean this. KD thought going there and winning the championship, getting the finals MVP, year one went as brilliantly as it could have, aside from the time he missed an injury, would fix this stuff for him. And there's no fixing this stuff. Anybody that's ever dealt with validation issues or self-esteem issues, whatever it is, no external factor is going to patch that hole. Like it's got to be something you do for yourself. And so I do wonder how much KD is enjoying this. I wonder how much KD is feeling like he made the right or the wrong decision. We've heard from his own words that right after he made the decision, he panicked. He was like, did I make the biggest mistake of my life? And so I think this is more of a window. And I do credit Kevin Durant for being open about this and letting us hear it.
Yeah, it is good to hear, and I'm happy for him. This is the Kevin Durant that I've been telling you about. This is who he is, and we just have to accept it. Our life is not public like his, and we have all kind of things in our life that are very, very similar to Kevin Durant. But we criticize him when he has a lot of things just like normal people. So I try not to do that. I got a lot of respect for what he does, and he's one of the greatest basketball players that we've seen.
You guys want to talk some football?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Coming up, former NFL head coach Chuck Pagano is in the house. Talk some football next on First Things First. Back here in First Things First, former NFL coach Chuck Pagano is here. Hey, Coach.
How you doing?
We needed you today. Love talking basketball, but every once in a while we need an injection of football.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, CC just,
Welcome to New York, Coach.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Man, you look good. Look like you're, you know how they take pictures like the president when they go into the White House, then afterwards? Yeah. Like, I've been knowing Coach for a little bit, and now that he's out of football, it looks like he's been rejuvenated.
It's the opposite effect.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Different from the last time we saw each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
So happy to have you here in New York.
Recharging, resetting.
Good.
Life's good, man.
Well, we're happy to have you. All right, Coach, let's talk about Des Bryant. One player, 32 teams. The assumption is he's going to land somewhere. Des has now been on the market for 6 weeks, and he's still without a team. Now reports are surfacing that Des will wait until the start of training camp in late July to sign that one-year prove-it deal. Coach, why do you think it is that he's still unsigned, and would you want Des on your team?
You know what? You can never have enough talent, on your football team. Mm-hmm. And, every situation is different. Situation's got to be right for the organization. Situation's got to be right for Des. His resume speaks for itself. He's a phenomenal, phenomenal football player, and he's played great football for a long time. You got locker room concern. Do you have a strong enough locker room? Do you have the character? You got the leadership in the locker room to handle a guy coming in like this? Do you need a player like this? I mean, they vetted this guy. They know him. Des is Des. And I don't think his game is going to change, but he can still play. Is he a 1? Is he a 2? Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So somebody is going to see this guy at some point. And this isn't the time. There's 90-man rosters right now, and all these teams have a ton of young talent right now. They've got their draft choices. They've got college free agents. They got tryout guys. They got a bunch of guys. You don't need to bring this guy in right now.
Oh, so we shouldn't be worried about him not signing right now?
Absolutely not.
Okay. At what
there's
point?
No way, because Des is working out. Des is grinding somewhere. Everybody always worried about it. I worried about it. The GM worried about it. Ownership worried about it. Hey, we want our guys here. We want them in the locker room. We need the chemistry. We need this. We need that. We'd love to have these guys here. But those great players, this guy's a competitor. He's passionate. He loves the game. He can make plays. But the only
issue with him is the locker room stuff, basically. It's the off-the-field stuff. So wouldn't you want that earlier on? Like, why wouldn't you want to bring him in right now?
You know what? Again, these guys are all looking at these young guys. Mm-hmm. They don't need to have him in their camp right now. It isn't like you can't bring him in, start of training camp, middle of training camp, last week in preseason, and say, okay, hey, Des, look, run 14 yards down the field, run an out route. Des knows how to run routes, and it's all based on, okay, are we going to run a bang at it? You're going to go off your third outside step or your fourth outside step? That's not going to be an issue. Now, the chemistry with the quarterback, whoever it is, throwing and catching those kind of things and fitting in, they're vetting and looking at all this young talent right now. They know what Des is. They don't need him in there right now, but he's going to sign with somebody. Would I love to have him on my team? Absolutely.
Yeah, now, Coach, I know you, and I know some of your history through multiple stops through college football, because that's where you really cut your teeth. And, man, you've taken on hundreds of kids like Des Bryant. As far as his personality, people might have some question marks about off the field, but, man, you've made a living turning guys like this around. So you're not worried about Dez and his personality. You're talking about the skill set. And right now, is he a number one? If I have a number one, is he a number two? And can I get him signed for the right amount of money? Those seem to be the only concerns that you have.
You just check off all those boxes. And if you can check off all those boxes and you feel like, hey, look, I can build a relationship with this guy. We can sit down and have a constructive conversation and say, okay, hey, here's what it is, and here's what we need from you. And this is exactly how we're going to hold you accountable. I'm going to own my stuff. You're going to own your stuff. You can come in and help us doing A, B, and C. And if you're good with that, and you've got a veteran locker room and you've got enough vets in there, just like Belichick back in '07 when he took on, nobody does it better than Coach Belichick. You know, Corey Dillon, Blunt, you go back to Randy Moss, when they traded for him in 2007. I was in Oakland in '05 and '06, and Randy was there. You know, and so he takes it, and all he does is go out and break Jerry Rice's, you know, single-season touchdown reception record and catches 23 touchdowns and the most yards he had because they had a conversation. And they vetted it, and they went back and forth and said, you know what, we've got the right locker room, we've got the right quarterback, this, that, and the other, and it's the right fit. So there's going to be a situation, there's going to be the right circumstances for Dez, and he's going to land somewhere and continue to be a productive football player.
You've said a couple times the right locker room. Can you describe to the audience, people such as myself that haven't spent time in those locker rooms like you two have, what does that look like? What is the right locker room for Dez Bryant? What type of quarterback? Is it about skill or is it about age and experience? What type of coach? Like, what is the right type of locker room for Dez Bryant?
Well, again, it's the culture, it's the identity, it's the culture in the locker room, and do you have enough veteran guys in there? Do you have an experienced quarterback like Eli Manning? Do you have Tom Brady as your quarterback? Do you have Andrew Luck as your quarterback? Is there enough veteran, vets on that football team, on the defensive side, on the offensive side, because you're going to have conversations. I had conversations with those guys. Back in 15, after our AFC championship, where we got beat by New England in the AFC championship in 14, and then we signed, Frank Gore, and we signed Andre Johnson. I knew those guys obviously from the University of Miami, but you talk to your vets. And I know Coach Belichick has conversation. Other coaches have conversations with their vets in that locker room and say, "How do you guys feel about this situation?" The teams that talk to those players and have relationships. That's your team, that's your locker room. And so you have conversations with those people and everybody's on board with it, and you feel, because if you got a young quarterback, you got a rookie or second-year quarterback, and you got a bunch of young players in there, certain teams, certain coaches, certain GMs. A lot
like Dez had in Dallas.
Certain GMs, certain coaches might shy away and say, you know what, we don't want to go down this road. We probably can't take this on, whatever that is. And I see a passionate guy. I see a competitor. I see a guy that can still make, football plays. So, again, it's got to be the right situation, the right fit.
Talking about competitor, I know a guy that you like. You and him, I have talked about him. And I would say your career would change if he had stayed healthy. Andrew Luck. What do you expect from Andrew in 2018 as a starting quarterback? As we start this season, and we haven't seen him in 18 months since he had surgery.
Yeah, I was just with Andrew. I was back in Indy, for our 6th annual Chuck Strong Gala, and Andrew was kind enough to come out. He was out there every year supporting that cause, and he looked phenomenal. And we've seen the pictures. We saw the picture. I think everybody saw the picture of, him in a tank top on a bicycle from the Indy 500. And, I mean, he's strapped, he's ripped. Mentally,
I saw that picture, Chuck. That picture looks good. I just wanted to let you know.
Yeah, I mean, he looks
in
my wife, my 3 daughters, my granddaughter, they all thought he looked great, too.
He did.
So, anyway, he's in a great place mentally. He's in a great place physically. I expect Andrew to be the old Andrew and come back and play great football, this season and beyond. Obviously, he's got a lot of work to do. He's got to get back on the grass. He's got to start throwing the football. All those things. That's going to happen. But he's in a great place. I love Andrew Luck, and he's a phenomenal. He got me more years.
He's still a phenom.
He is. He's a phenom, and unlike. There's a lot of good quarterbacks that came out this year and last year and the years before that, but he was the most ready-made, especially in today's football when the offseason, you really don't have an offseason. And we didn't get Andrew until the middle of June because of his graduation at Stanford. We got him for a rookie minicamp, and then he came in the middle of June, and he's a brilliant guy. He learned the playbook, within 1 week, and the rest is history. He's a great player, and I got great respect and love for that dude.
Follow up on Andrew Luck quickly here. Was his competitiveness and almost his thirst to get back on the football field maybe part of his own worst enemy there after he got hurt?
Him not being able to play killed him.
Yeah.
The great players, Chris will talk. I mean, when you can't be there for your teammates and your team, and you're sitting there, recovering and rehabbing from an injury, and you can't be on the football field, it kills you. And last year, it killed him. He was constantly, hey, I'm trying to get back. The great competitors want to be out there. There's other guys that, they're not built like that. They don't have that in their DNA. They're not wired like that. But this cat, I mean, he's dying to get back on the football field. And so I think he understands that, okay, look, I got to do A, B, C, and D, to get myself
Keep myself
back.
healthy this time, yeah.
And make sure I'm ready, because it's, the mental part, the physical part. He's got to build chemistry with all the new guys on that team. He's got to throw the football, and then he's going to have to start taking some licks at some time.
If I own an NFL team, Chuck can coach for me.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
Chuck Strong.
Appreciate it, yeah.
Absolutely.
Coach, thank you so much for hanging out with us.
Thanks
Great to see you.
Yeah.
Great to have you.
Get back on the grass. Luck, we need you on the grass.
Coming up,
That's old ball
NBA champ
coach.
Brian Scalabrine is going to join the show next on First Things First. Welcome back to First Things First. We welcome in Brian Scalabrine. Hey, Brian, thanks for
Good to
joining
see
us.
you. It's a pleasure to have you on the show, man.
Welcome.
We'll give a pound
Oh,
over
I'll
here.
take that
There
pound.
we
Thank you for
go.
the acknowledgement. Brian played basketball at the highest level, and yet he came in here and gave us props for getting up super early in the morning,
Yeah,
working
TV,
the morning show.
TV in the morning, man. You guys bring it.
No,
That's
we go
tough.
NBA, you brought it, so it works both ways.
Bring. That's the same.
It's all good. All
Thanks
right.
for joining us, bro.
Hey, how did the Cavs and Warriors follow up an insane Game 1 of the NBA Finals with Game 2? But this one not as dramatic. Everyone knew the score in this one. And this one not as close. Warriors actually played 4 quarters. LeBron played well, but had a modest 29. Steph Curry, though, carried the Warriors, especially late. 33 points, including 9 3-pointers. That was an NBA Finals record. Brian, I'll start with you. How do you think the Warriors were able to win Game 2 so convincingly last night?
It was easy for them because they came out with the right mindset. Steve Kerr made a nice adjustment. No more setting screens. Let's get out of these screens. Boom. JaVale McGee, dunk. They go 5 for 5 in the restricted area right off the jump. And then all of a sudden, the Cavs defense got lax. You cannot be lax when you're playing the Golden State Warriors in Oracle, because these guys will move the ball. They'll pass it. They'll hit the paint. And they were unbelievable in the paint through the first 3 quarters, and then Steph goes off 5 for 5 in that 4th quarter. Really, the Cavs had really no business of being in that game. It was closer than we thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
But, I mean, right, what we saw from the Warriors, that's what I expected in Game 2.
From a basketball standpoint, slow it down for me. What was the strategy? Now, we know they do a lot of pick and roll, but what did Golden State and Steve Kerr do, especially in those first 12 minutes, to get those lunks, those layups and dunks?
So great call. So normally they were coming in, they were setting screens, they were coming out, and that was just easy switch. What you saw yesterday, JaVale McGee run up, slip out of the screen. Anytime that happens, it makes it difficult to be solid in your coverages. Should I switch when a guy doesn't set? So you have a little bit of indecisiveness. Everyone's worried about Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Kevin Durant, for, deservingly so.
Right.
And then guys like JaVale McGee, Livingston, and Draymond Green, that was where the defense broke down. Those guys got easy baskets. Restricted area shots for the Warriors and Oracle will eventually open up the three-point line.
It was exactly what the Rockets did to the Warriors in games 4 and 5 of the previous round. The Rockets saw the Warriors were switching everything, and in that must-win game 4, they started slipping those screens. Got Capella involved, got P.J. Tucker involved at the rim. The Warriors took that game plan, something they've done in the past as well, and executed it to perfection. I don't think it's a coincidence that happened at the beginning of the game, and then also again at the beginning of the second half, and then Steph Curry gets off in the 4th quarter.
Exactly.
Now, listen, part of that, I understand. There's the shot right before the shot clock buzzer, and there is some, but a lot of it also was Steph was getting separation because they weren't being as honest on the screen switching, because they couldn't, because they were getting torched at the rim throughout. That's why this team presents so many bad choices. There are no good, Jenna, you've been asking us throughout the morning, like, what can the Cavs do? There are no good choices here. And when Durant, Steph's the story because of what he did in the 4th quarter. Durant played a almost perfect basketball game.
Efficient, all the way.
As efficient as you can get. He rebounded for him. He moved the ball. The ball didn't stick in his hands. And the only time he stuck with those ISOs for more than 2 dribbles was when he had a significant mismatch. Like, that's what Durant scoring 26 on 14 shots. Yeah. That is the ideal situation for Golden State.
Did you take anything positive out of what Cleveland did?
Well, they know what they shouldn't do.
Okay,
I
so
mean,
there you go.
They know. And listen, they're going to win Game 3. Cleveland is going to win Game 3. They're going to come in.
I'm sorry. Let me just sit on that for a second. You're sure the Cavs are winning Game 3 back in Cleveland?
Yeah, because they're not going to. Everything that they did wrong, they're not going to do again. They played. Well, you're going to take what you saw in Game 1, the energy, the us against the world mentality, and that's going to come into Game 3. LeBron does not. Everyone's like, LeBron has to score 51. So they were at 102 yesterday. At the end of regulation in Game 1, they were at 107. So, like, the scoring is that much different. They do need guys like Kevin Love to be better. That's no question about it. They need guys like J.R. Smith to make open shots. The Cavs are going to be better at home. The Warriors will not be as comfortable. This is all going to come down to really Game 4.
Listen, and we're going to get more to the Cavs side of things with you later in the show. I want to talk about Steph, though, for a second, because if people just wake up this morning and watch just sports television or just see the box score, they feel like Steph was dominant. Man, Steph was 6 of 18 through 3 quarters. Steph was clearly the 4th most effective Warrior through 3 quarters. And then in the 4th, he had 16 points. He was magnificent in the 4th quarter, 5 for 5 from 3. I can't remember. Maybe you played with a guy that you can say that could do something similar. But a guy have the ability to just flip a switch from deep the way Steph can, to where he was having a bad game. It was more going to be another, Steph, the Warriors win, but Steph's not great. And then the 4th quarter, he was the difference. I can't remember another guy that could go from that cold to that hot that quickly.
Well, that's the MO of him, right? It only takes one. And he's had bad games and then turns around and has great quarters. And some of these great quarters are 18 points, 20 points in the quarter. Yeah, he was special, but I'm with you. I think he was special in the 4th. I think throughout the game, he played with an aggressive mindset. He was, and he wanted. It's almost like he's like, this is my turn to get the MVP. I know all the talk out there about, it doesn't bother me. I need to play aggressive. Like, Steph Curry is going out with the mindset, like, I'm going to get the MVP this year, and he's proven it. And with him, and I think with the Warriors, like, pick your poison, whatever one you want. He is going to play well. He's going to have those runs. And when he makes one, especially in that building, he has the ability to go off.
Now, Brian, I have to lean on you for this one, because this is something that, in watching you throughout your career, this is something that you're very familiar with. The Cavs need to make this ugly. Not that you're an ugly guy. But
my wife has been telling me that once in a while.
But as a role player, you know exactly what it takes playing a team like Golden State. Now, I enjoy watching LeBron play against the best, but I would have preferred the Celtics been in this game, because I believe the Celtics would have come in with the mindset to be able to defend the Warriors better and more physical to make the game ugly, the way they track LeBron, full court press. I believe that. Now, I know we're not talking about the Celtics. How do the Cavs make this game ugly from a handsome guy?
So that's good, right? So they did all right. They had 16 offensive rebounds. They need to turn the Warriors over. They need to pressure the Warriors. Now, you're going to give up some things, but you can't come in and limp into your defense and expect the Warriors to not have a great offensive night. You have to make them miss. You can't sit there and say, well, if we switch and this guy gets an open shot, maybe they'll miss it, maybe they won't. No, you have to turn up the physicality. And making it ugly, you make it ugly. The more scraps, the more like face-to-face you get with the Cavs, that's an advantage to them.
So you enjoyed the ending of game number 1 with Tristan.
No question.
They should have continued that in the 1st quarter and on into game 2.
No question. The Cavs have to have that mentality. And if I'm T. Lue and guys don't have that mentality, I'm going with somebody else. It's not hard to get a role player to come up and goon up the game, as T. Lue used.
You're the second former player.
I was just going to say, we get these former NBA players that come on, and it's the same thing.
Everyone wants Kendrick Perkins to just get 5 minutes just to throw some elbows.
Wow. I mean, it's going to be tough for him to keep up with those guys.
All right, maybe 45.
That's your boy.
He's my boy, but man,
he was slow in his prime.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be, they have to make the game tough. Like, you're not going to go in there and just go up and down with these guys. Now, it's going to be easier in Cleveland. They'll rough up the game in Cleveland. But you have to have that mentality. You got to be like, we're in the 90s, and we're like gumming up the game, gooning up the game, as T. Lue likes to say. You will not beat the Warriors. I don't think they're going to win anyways.
Right.
But you're not going to get a game unless you make this a tough battle for them.
Let's get physical. Coming up, Brian Scalabrine will stay with us to talk about the best fit for LeBron James next season. That's next on First Things First. Hey, we'll get to LeBron's offseason plans with Brian Scalabrine in a second. But first, Steph Curry, watch it, guys, draws the double team, finds a wide-open Jordan Bell for the dunk.
Could I have dunked that? I don't know.
Could you have You'd get a lot of open layups playing for this team, though.
They look good.
Slip those screens. Steph had before his shot started falling, he had a really good passing game last night.
More Steph, loses the handle, still able to hit the amazing three before the shot clock goes off, just like it was planned.
Oh, you know it's your day. When they start falling like this, shot clock down, oh, let me hoist it.
And just like LeBron said during the last series, 2 points is not always 2 points. A Steph three is not always a Steph three.
Agreed.
Sometimes it's a Steph 9.
Remember, it only takes one that can turn into 5.
Right. And that's what happened last night.
Yeah, that's just what I was getting ready to say.
All right, finally, LeBron James. First, he hits KD with a spin. Then JaVale McGee with a spin.
You got 2
then
spin
makes
cycles
the
on
layup.
your dryer?
No, only 1 spin cycle.
And 1.
LeBron is maximum. You know, the people that used to use the spin are when dudes lost their quickness, but he's actually mastered the spin and still being effective because he's a beast.
I told Nick he needs to put a patent on this because I saw Marcus Smart and a couple other people trying this.
There it is again. Another spin move.
All right, moving on now. Among the many issues facing our country, Brian, obviously the economy, the quality of education, and where LeBron will end up, and in no particular order, by the way. Former Cavs GM David Griffin recently shed some light on LeBron's pending free agency this summer. According to Griffin, the Sixers have a leg up on signing LeBron. Now, Ben Simmons and LeBron James, you should know, share an agent. So, Brian, I'll ask you, which team do you think would be the best fit for LeBron next season?
Houston.
Oh.
Yeah, it's no question. He just has to be willing to go to Philly. When he goes to the Cleveland Cavaliers and says, hey, I'm leaving, I'm going to Philly. You will get nothing in return. Hold on. And then, but you want to get 2 first-rounders and take on Ryan Anderson's contract? I'll go to Houston, join my boy Chris Paul. We'll have James Harden, and I want to take down the Warriors. That's where he's going next year.
That's how Chris Paul got there. It was Chris Paul didn't sign in free agency. They traded for him.
And LeBron will opt into his contract, and his bird rights will go, and he'll be in Houston.
Wow, I know no one has told us that. Now, Nick has given us a lot of information and has given us a couple viable landing spots, but hearing the trade. Now, if that doesn't work out, what is plan B? What are the top 3 teams that he can end up
If I may, just real quick, I'm sorry, but before we talk about teams other than Houston, I want you to explain why you think Houston's the best fit. Because we've heard a lot of people say, man, Harden needs the ball, Chris Paul needs the ball, LeBron needs the ball. So why do you think, before we get into other teams, that Houston is the no-brainer best fit?
It's the only place where he can actually beat the Warriors. And look at the playoffs this year. Wings are the only ones that play. Bigs are becoming like they're a dying breed, right?
Yes.
So when you have Houston and you're gonna like James Harden, Chris Paul, they needed another guy. And who's to say like if Chris Paul didn't get hurt that they wouldn't have beat the Warriors,
if
right?
Trevor Ariza plays his normal career basketball, then they're in better shape.
Houston is the best fit if he cares about beating the Warriors, which I think he does, right? I think that this is what drives him. Houston's the best fit. And if you're the Cavs, why not take 2021 first-round pick unprotected, 2023 first-round pick unprotected? And then if the Cavs say, no, we're not taking on Ryan Anderson's $20 million, then LeBron has to go to Philly. He might go to L.A., but I think Philly is his best choice to get to the finals.
So I think they could beat the Warriors in Philly. Because you're saying only wings play, but that's in part because nobody's got a good big man anymore. I shouldn't say nobody. New Orleans does, obviously. Utah does. Philly clearly does. If you have a lineup of Ben Simmons, LeBron, and Joel Embiid, and the Warriors try to go small, not only is your length defensively going to cause problems for them, but they don't have a way to guard that lineup. Draymond Green cannot guard Joel Embiid, and Kevin Durant cannot guard Joel Embiid. And one of those other two is going to have to guard LeBron, not not to mention Ben Simmons, assuming he develops some sort of a 12-foot jump shot, his ability to back down Steph or Clay. Like, you don't think this, just the overwhelming size of Philly, if LeBron went there, could present problems?
I mean, LeBron historically has played the best when he has space and shooting. Like, those guys don't provide that for him. And I'm not saying they're not going to be good. I think they have a really good chance of going to the finals. But ultimately, if you're going to beat the Warriors, you better have guys that can shoot threes. Now, if you want to go down, you want to go to war with Covington, and maybe J.J. Redick comes back for a minimum deal because that's what it's going to take, then you might have an option. But Embiid, Simmons, and LeBron is not, to me, in today's NBA, is not as good of a fit as Harden, LeBron, and Chris Paul.
Can I throw an idea out there that may make you happy? We had Antoine Walker on here, and as sure as you said Houston, he said Boston. He was like, think about it for a second. Let it sink in before you laugh.
He said that he should. He said he feels like they're the best.
Oh, no, he's the best fit. Yeah. If he wants to win, Boston would be, but...
Wait. If he wants to win, Boston would be?
Yeah, but like that, I don't even think that's not even an option.
Why?
Kyrie.
But Kyrie's got 1 year left, and you'd rather have LeBron. Like, period, point blank. You'd rather.
Now, I know Danny's cold-blooded, but, man, that would be cold-blooded.
That would be colder than what he did to Isaiah Thomas. Now, you would have to.
Like, you bring in Kyrie, and then you trade him for LeBron?
Yeah, well,
the Celtics don't have cap space, right?
No, I understand. They would have to either trade Gordon or Kyrie. One of the two would have to be traded.
So Kyrie's good with this? That's cool.
I mean, I don't know. Does Kyrie?
I don't see it. I don't even hear these conversations going on. So maybe you guys are right. Maybe Antoine knows something. But I can call Danny in 5 minutes. But I don't think that these conversations are going on.
Listen, I don't think, to be fair to Antoine was not saying he thinks he will go there. He was saying from basketball standpoint.
He said, if I'm LeBron, I'm looking at going to Boston.
Yeah, it's a great fit. Like, if he wants to win, yeah, it's a great fit. But Houston makes the most sense. His boy is Chris Paul. LeBron will help James Harden get over that hump. That's a good fit for him. And if you watch... You think, if you can't tell me that if LeBron was on that team this year, they would have beat the Warriors. They would have beat the Warriors.
I mean, if LeBron had any other star on the team he's on now, even with their bad defense, they would be able to beat the Warriors.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I want to talk about the Lakers just for a second. Because a lot of the belief is, well, LeBron's not going to go to the Lakers because they won't have enough. If right now, this Cavs team, as presently constituted, as bad as they've been, if they had Paul George, I feel like this series would be very close. It's probably 1-1, and I feel like we would say, with LeBron playing at this level, they got a shot. LeBron plus Paul George in Los Angeles, with whatever pieces they have, not LeBron plus Paul George and Kawhi, just LeBron and Paul George, could that be competitive with Golden State, in your opinion?
On the Lakers? No.
Yeah.
No.
Why?
I mean, they just don't have enough. The Warriors got 4 guys, and they bring their guys off the bench. LeBron and Paul George they're not beating the Golden State Warriors. I don't know whoever. Are you going to keep Lonzo Ball?
My point is this. Right now, if Paul George were on the Cavs, if Paul George were taking...
Yeah, but they have Kevin Love. They have some guys on that team. They're not... I know the world piles on these guys, but they do have the highest payroll in the NBA. And usually guys who make good money usually are pretty good players. But it's not... Paul George and LeBron is not enough to beat the Warriors. Like James Harden, Chris Paul, and LeBron with Clint Capella and P.J. Tucker, that's a lot. That's a lot. And if he wants to win, Houston is the place. Now, I'm not sure the Cavs are going to take on Ryan Anderson in the first round, but if LeBron goes to him and says, I'm leaving, do you want anything in return? I'm going to Houston. I'm opting into my deal. His bird rights go with him. So now he can sign for the mega deal, 5-year deal. So Houston makes the most sense for LeBron.
Brian, we'll see you a little bit later on the show.
I like it.
You just need a little bit more energy, and you'll be perfect fit for this show. She was being sarcastic. Is Tiger Woods making a push to win the U.S. Open? Next on First Things First. First Things First, and it's time for Say What? Klay Thompson had an injury scare in Game 1, tweaking his left ankle, and according to Klay, after Game 2, he was not aware how much he actually used his ankles. Say what?
Being on the training table it felt like 3 straight days, something I'm not used to, but at this point in the season, any means necessary. And the ankle feels great. I won't do much tomorrow, and I'll do a little bit Tuesday, but just to conserve all I got for Wednesday, because I don't want to play with it. It's something that you use a lot. I don't realize how much you use your ankle till you hurt it, but I'm gonna.
You should have asked me.
Yeah. But yeah, that's that. So.
I like their relationship a lot. The Splash Brothers got a cool relationship. Clay, by the way, is an Iron Man.
No
He's
doubt.
the only member of that Warriors Big Three pre-Durant that's never missed a playoff game. Like, I mean, Clay has been, coming back from that, you called me right after it happened, man. We thought he was done with a significant injury.
Yes.
And so, I mean, he's a tough guy, man.
I thought that was going to be the most significant thing JR did all season.
Yeah. I mean,
Hurt a Warriors player.
Absolutely. I mean, and Clay.
That was a dangerous play.
It was a dangerous. I don't think it was a dirty play, but it was because it wasn't intentional.
No, this is the thing. As an athlete, you know when you're making a dangerous play. When you're making a dangerous play, you have the ability to be able to hurt someone. So he put himself in a bad position, which almost hurt Clay.
All right, time for some stories to start your morning. Last night, the others for Golden State really stepped up. JaVale McGee put in the starting lineup for Kevon Looney, and he responded by going 6 for 6. Sean Livingston went 5 for 5. Those guys are perfect. Nick, what'd you make of their contributions last night?
I mean, you can't beat this team when McGee and Livingston take 11 shots, make 11 shots, and give you 22 points. The McGee stuff is all finished at the rim. Sean Livingston is making these vintage Sean Livingston shots, which feel like for every other player in the league, they're 22% shots, and for him, they're 82% shots. These contested, hand-in-your-face, mid-range shots that he's made a career on in Golden State.
JaVale McGee has missed a lot of time, not because he was injured or anything, because the coach decided DNP. Coach not going to play him. But they have a lot of confidence in him in the pick and roll, and he altered a lot of shots on the defensive end. So, man, what he did on the offensive end, that was unexpected. Defensively, big boost for them.
Guys, back in February when the Cavs traded for Rodney Hood, he was expected to be a key cog in their lineup. This postseason for the Cavs, he's averaging just 4 points a game. Entering Game 2, Hood said this is the first time in his life he's been getting DNPs. Nick, what do you make of Hood's comments?
I understand his frustration. He made a bad mistake when he refused to check into a game in the Toronto series, but the reality is a lot of guys on this team have made bad mistakes. JR threw a hot bowl of soup on a coach, didn't lose his starting spot, right? Rodney Hood is watching Jordan Clarkson, who came over at the same time, different trades, but same trade deadline, go out there and have one of the least efficient postseasons in NBA history, and he keeps getting minutes. I understand why Rodney Hood's frustrated, saying, man, I averaged 16 a game in Utah.
This year. Against the Western Conference, you would think with his athleticism, his ability to be able to score off the bounce, that he would get some type of minutes, and their role players have struggled, and they've struggled scoring the basketball. I can understand his overall frustration. This has been the worst year probably of his professional career.
At the end of the third quarter last night, Steph Curry fired off a last-second three-pointer and landed near Kendrick Perkins. All 17 feet of Kendrick Perkins did not move out of the way. After the game, a couple of Warriors players took exception to Perkins not moving, calling it dangerous. What'd you make of this, CC?
I'll make nothing of it. And the reason why, because if there was something, Draymond Green would have been right there in the midst. And you see Draymond, he looks in on the situation, realizes, there's really not a whole bunch going on right here. It's okay. And then he walks away. So, no, the Warriors do a lot of complaining, though. Stop complaining.
And there's no bench that gets more involved in the action than Golden State.
Oh, they have a good time. They're throwing a party over there.
And Zaza, when guys are shooting on his end, is standing up and yelling at him. I know a lot of guys do it. Zaza just seems one of the most notable. Kendrick was 4 feet away from where Steph landed. Steph then walking up the court stumbled into him. There's nothing there.
All right, finally, LeBron James led his team in scoring with 29 points last night, while Steph Curry set the finals three-point record with 9 triples. The two are both fighting for the finals MVP award. So, Nick, how many games does this series have to go for LeBron to even have a chance at it?
For LeBron to have a chance at it, it's got to go 7. And I think even in that situation, they won't give it to him. The NBA has made it very clear. It's not in the bylaws, but it might as well be. To be finals MVP, you got to win the finals. The first finals MVP ever went to a player in a losing effort, Jerry West. They lost in 7. In that 7th game, he had 42, 12, and 13. He won Finals MVP as a losing member of the losing team, and now we are on. Everyone since then has gone to a member of the winning team. Narrative, when it comes to awards in sports, narrative matters almost as much as performance.
Yeah, and I believe LeBron will have a chance. I think he will follow up the 50-point-plus game in 1 with a 40-plus game in 3 and 4. So I think that he'll be in the running, but you mentioned it. You can't change what people already are used to. And I don't think that they would ever, not ever, but I think it would be very, very hard for them to get off of that. If it went 7 games, the first time they played, when Iggy got the MVP,
6.
LeBron was the best player on the court. Like, Iggy was
laughable.
Like that. I mean, it's an embarrassment. Like, he's the finals MVP. But LeBron was the best player on the court, and it was clear. And if they didn't give it to him that year, it'd be hard to see him getting it any other year.
In 2015, LeBron averaged 36, 13, and 9. They gave the MVP to the guy guarding him who averaged 16, 6, and 4.
But also, Love is out. Kyrie gets hurt in game number 1. Game goes into overtime. So that, to me, was a strong narrative.
Of course.
To, my goodness, this man should get MVP.
Listen, but when I say narrative matters, the narrative this morning that is going to be out there is that Steph Curry's en route halfway home to his first ever finals MVP. And that narrative will carry the day. Just look at LeBron versus Steph. Forget game 1. From last night, LeBron versus Steph. So Steph had 4 more points, 2 fewer rebounds, 5 fewer assists, and shot worse from the field. By any objective measure, LeBron had the better game. But the narrative this morning is Steph had an amazing game. NBA record three-pointers, and LeBron didn't do enough. I mean, those numbers speak for themselves. So, like, the narrative will carry the day. And that happens in the regular season as well. 2 years ago, the narrative was, man, if Russ averages a triple-double, he has to be the MVP. And it carried him. This year, the narrative was set, and understandably early on, man, this is James Harden's year. Finally, James Harden's going to get his MVP, and the narrative was set. Like, the narrative, it would take, I think, the Cavs winning the championship or losing a nail-biter in 7 for this to go to anyone other than Steph Curry.
Why does the NBA want Steph Curry to win the? Why is this the narrative?
I don't know if the NBA wants it. I think the media. I think the people covering it.
Why is this the narrative?
Because Steph's a good guy who's never won one.
And he's one of the 3 best players in the world. What about that? Like, you don't have to reach for, like, hey, who you think might be MVP? Hey, the Durant, LeBron, or Steph. Like, anyone outside of that, you would be stretching the conversation to put them there.
And real quick, we overemphasize fourth-quarter performances. Durant was brilliant through 3 quarters, had another quiet fourth quarter. Steph was bad through 3 quarters, had a brilliant fourth quarter. So Steph today is the story, and the record-setting 3-pointers, that helps as well.
All right, let's talk some golf. Tiger Woods had a bittersweet weekend at the Memorial Tournament out in Dublin, Ohio. Sweet, and then he played really well for just his 9th tournament this year. Bitter, in that in golf you occasionally have to putt the ball, and Tiger's putting was off-putting. Tiger missed 7 putts inside 5 feet this week, finished at 9 under, tied for 23rd. Here's what Tiger had to say about his performance.
I just need to hit better putts. This week I didn't feel comfortable with my lines, and my feel was a little bit off. Consequently, I missed a bunch of putts, but I hit it really good this week. So that's a positive going into Shinnecock, where ball striking is going to be a must. Obviously, way different golf shots around the greens. Lots of bump and runs, and putters are spinners. It'll be very different. But overall, if I hit the ball like this, I'll be pleased in 2 weeks.
I know I say this all the time, but Tiger Woods 2.0 is so refreshing.
You love it.
Where he played that tournament, and he's just so happy and proud of himself, which he should be because he played well. But the old Tiger, you wouldn't have heard that from. Anyway, Cece, how encouraged are you by what you saw from Tiger Woods? The U.S. Open is less than 2 weeks away.
It was a good tournament for Tiger. This is a tournament that Tiger's dominated. He loves playing golf in Ohio. I mean, he's won 13 championships in the state of Ohio, 5 at Muirfield, and he's won 8 at Firestone. So this is last year of Firestone. He's trying to qualify for that. So it's a tournament he's very familiar with. So the greens he's very familiar with. I'm a little concerned about the putting because Tiger Woods, if he just putts a normal Tiger Woods day, he's going to be in the top 3 to 5 players. 31 putts on Saturday. Follow that on Sunday. 31 on Sunday. After 31 putt are awful. Missing 4 inside of 5 feet. So for me,
a couple inside of 3 feet.
Yeah, there's a thing that I want to watch because you could see the speed of the putt. Tiger, when he was younger, he had LASIK surgery, he had eye surgery. I'm concerned that maybe his eyes need to be adjusted.
Wait, that was
again.
a serious tweet by you? I thought you were just exasperated
I thought you were being
by his
sarcastic.
putting. Because you tweeted this week, and Tiger needs to have his eyes checked the way he's putting.
Yeah, because typically,
that.
if you get your eyes corrected in the 20s, you need to get them corrected, Jenna, when you're a little past middle age in the 40s.
got it.
That's where Tiger Woods, Tiger Woods right now at 42 would think, you know something? I'm about middle aged or past middle age. I just think it's a real thing. I think that it's underrated what vision provides an athlete with extreme ability. And I just believe in golfing, seeing him putt like that, I've been following Tiger and been with him. I believe his eye, he said he didn't like his sight lines. Well, why didn't he like him on a course that he's won so many times? So that's just something I want to watch going forward.
Okay, so I saw your tweet this weekend, and I thought, this is what I thought was going on. That C has pulled out the iPad. He's streaming. He's built his whole Sunday around because they moved the tournament up. Because they were expecting bad weather on Sunday, so they moved the start times up. So Tiger, who started, I think, 7th on Sunday, tied for 7th overall, he had an early morning start time.
8:20.
C's out there watching. He's like, you got to be kidding me with all these misses. Man, get your eyes fixed, Tiger. But you're serious. So that I find that really interesting. Because if you didn't watch the tournament this weekend, Tiger played well enough to win the tournament other than putting. Look at the numbers. I mean, strokes gained, approach to the green, 1st in the field. Around the green, 3rd in the field. Tee to green, 1st in the field. Putting, 72nd. By the way, that's 72nd out of 73 guys that made the cut. So he's 1st in 2 major categories, 3rd in another, and 2nd to last in putting. Like, you had reason to be exasperated if you were. The eye thing is fascinating to me because I hear you talk about, of all the things that you're proud of, your eyesight is an odd one.
You just got your eyes checked again.
But
no, I know it's benefited me, and I know it's hurt other people involved in sport. Like, eyesight it's so underrated. But also, I would be very, very careful. I would be very, very careful as far as his ball striking was very good. His iron play was very good. His wedge play is very good. The fairways at Muirfield are very, very generous. Next time we see Tiger play, the fairway is going to be twice that size.
Or half that size.
Yeah. They're twice the size at Muirfield. So can he fit his driver? Because he won't be able to get away with playing irons and 3-woods at the U.S. Open because of the length at Shinnecock. He's got to be able to fit that driver in those narrow fairways. Can he do that at the U.S. Open? That will be a bigger question than his putting.
So were you more encouraged, Nick, what you saw tee to green, or were you more eyebrow sort of raising with what you saw on the putting green?
I was shocked that he had, I think he had on Saturday 2 3-putts. On Sunday, once it was clear he was not going to win the tournament, or really even get back in contention, I thought his last few holes were bad. I was really encouraged by his ball placement and his approach shots. Like, he still was a little wild with the driver, but I think he went out of bounds twice in this tournament. But his approach shots were spectacular. I mean, they were
the best that you have seen since 2015.
Absolutely, 100%. And so the putting thing that is so bizarre to me is 2 months ago, the only reason he contended in a tournament was because he was 59 out of 59 on putts inside of 9 feet. There was a couple months ago when we were like, man, his putting saved him and kept him in it when all the other parts of his game were off. This weekend, it was the exact opposite. I thought all the other parts of his game were really good, and the putting was terrible. Like, we just still haven't seen 4 rounds where there's nothing to pick apart. Hopefully we see that in 10 days.
He is very close.
It's very close. It's exciting.
All right, coming up, let's get back to some basketball. Did the Cavaliers show any signs that can make this series competitive? Brian Scalabrine back with us next on First Things First. Brian Scalabrine is back with us. Game 2 of the NBA Finals last night went to the Warriors, which means the Cavs now find themselves down 2-0 despite having the best player in basketball in George Hill. LeBron James followed up his 51-point performance in Game 1 with 29 points, 13 assists. His teammates, though, they shot just 39% from the floor. That's neither good nor surprising. Here's what LeBron had to say after the game.
Well, I think at the end of the day, we have a Game 3 to play. And, we got an opportunity to go home, and we played, some really good basketball on our home floor, but that shouldn't give us any comfort. We should still be uncomfortable with the series as we were in Game 1 and as we were tonight.
Brian, a lot of people wondered how the ending of Game 1 would affect the Cavs in Game 2. I don't know so much LeBron, as he seems to bring it every night, but the rest of this team. Did it look like Game 1 was still sort of looming over this team?
Maybe a little bit. I thought that they didn't come out with the right mindset, especially in that first quarter. I mean, I thought their defensive pressure was not where it needed to beat the Warriors in Oracle. Now, they will play better at home. I can't imagine Golden State playing better than what we just saw in Game 2. So I really expect the Cavs to really junk up this game and win Game 3 because LeBron will be better. He'll have a chance to look at the film. The Cavs will have a chance to see all their mistakes. And I don't think that Steph Curry is going to go off like this. I mean, he has the NBA record 9 3-pointers in the game. So I fully expect the Cavs to take care of business at home.
Here was the most disappointing part if you were rooting for the Cavs last night or just rooting for a competitive series. The Cavs in the first quarter, it felt like, aside from LeBron, couldn't have played worse. They had one basket in the first quarter that was not scored or assisted by LeBron. The Warriors got everything they wanted at the rim, right?
Yeah,
yes.
And they're only down 4. Like, they weathered that storm.
That was
somewhat.
a good sign
They
for the Cavs.
only down 4. They play poorly in the second quarter. The Cavs come out in the third quarter and win the third quarter. The quarter the Warriors have been winning series with. And it's like, okay, they get it to 7 in the fourth. And nobody can hit open shots. It's just time and time again because the way the Warriors changed how they're guarding LeBron. We're going to try to trap him at half court. We're going to double him throughout. We're going to double him on the post. And LeBron, because he is who he is, says, okay, you're going to do that? I will find the open man. And those guys could not knock down shots.
Anytime the Warriors shoot over 50%, you're going to have a hard time beating them. Unless they turn the ball over 16 to 24 times. Like, if you have one of those rare games where they're missing and they're turning over. In this game, because I believe the Cavs couldn't be physical early because they changed the game plan. They were slipping the screens. They were getting right to the rim, so they couldn't get them in their sight. So I just thought that the Cavs, being that close, Nick, they thought they were playing better than what they were. Now, the Warriors, besides Steph Curry late, he's the only one that really shot the ball exceptional late. KD was pretty consistent. So that's the reason why they shot such a high percentage. So they have to be able to get that percentage down. And it's just hard to expect that on the road from a Cavs team that I kept going over this and over this. 29th in defense in the NBA. Every other game, we see it creep in there. So this is who they are.
Yeah, no question. Here's the big thing: you have to turn the Warriors over. There's no question about that. You can't go in 8 turnovers, 12 turnovers. They got to be upwards of 16, 17, and you do that with your defensive pressure. You do that with deflections. I do think that the Cavs, who have played extremely well at home in this playoffs, besides the Indiana series, but those guys play with a lot more energy at home, and they make shots. So if you double-team LeBron, and it only takes 1 or 2 shots for the whole, sort of offensive to open up for the Cleveland. If LeBron plays exactly the same way he plays in Game 2, they'll win Game 3.
Well, and so when you talk about the other guys, so let's talk about their J.R. Smith, who starts for him, Jeff Green, first guy off the bench, Jordan Clarkson, second guy off the bench, Kyle Korver, third guy off the bench. So that is 4 of your top 8 of your rotation. Through 2 games in the NBA Finals, those 4 guys are 14 of 52. 14 of 52. Those 4 guys who you have to rely on are shooting 27% from the field. That, to go back to my point after the Indiana series, they can't play worse. At home, they will play better. Now, how much better? Will it be significantly better? In one of those games, maybe. Like, we'll see. What we do know is Game 3 in 2015, the Cavs won. In 2016, the Cavs blew the Warriors out in Game 3. In 2017, the Cavs had control of that basketball game until an 11-0 run at the end, which obviously ended the series essentially. This is, of course, obviously a must-win game for Cleveland. You go down 3, the series might be over anyway, but if you go down 3-0, it is definitively unquestionably over.
A lot of those guys got to put the ball on the floor and go to the rim. Do you hear Jeff Van Gundy talking about that? The shot fake, sidestep 3.
Yes.
Deck the ball, go to the paint. Make a play once you get to the paint. Maybe that play is a layup. Maybe that play is another kick out. But if you're just like, I'm just going to shoot threes, unless you're Korver, I get it. But Jeff Green, come on, man. He's one of the great athletes of this game. If you watch him, I got a chance to cover him. He is a freak of nature. J.R. Smith, a good athlete. All these guys got to get to the basket, and I think they will at home. They got to have that mindset that Houston had when they went back to Houston, and P.J. Tucker sort of willed that game.
And also, that's the same mindset that Steph had. Besides slipping at the rim, that's what Steph's M.O. for the first 3 quarters. I'm going to get to the paint, try to create. Even when he was missing shots in the paint, it creates space later on in the game, and we saw that space in the fourth quarter.
So besides that, and then obviously tightening up defense, what other adjustments can the Cavs make, having seen what they saw from the Warriors in 2?
I don't know if they'll do much more. Everyone's going to – I don't think they switch screens, or if they do switch – they're going to have high hands. They'll be up body to body. That's the kind of stuff they'll do. You're not going to see a drastic different plan. The one thing they got beat.
Different starting 5. You're not going to see different guys in there.
Well,
Nothing.
They could go small. They could go Kevin Love at the 5. But I don't think
No, they
whoever
got
you
to pound
put,
them in. If you take
whoever,
Tristan out of lineup, then you lose the advantage of getting offensive boards.
Sure, and they had 16 of those. But whatever you do, it is you got to play harder than what you did. And you got to play harder in the first quarter. And you got to play with more physicality. And you got to get into the airspace of the Warriors. Like, those guys did whatever they wanted in that game. Whatever shot they wanted to get, they got it. And that's why you were like, man, like the announcers were going crazy over what the Warriors were doing, but they only had a 4-point lead. It's because they got every shot that they wanted to get. Mm-hmm. You cannot do that in Game 3 in Cleveland. You have to be in their airspace. You have to have the mindset of being physical throughout the game.
You also have to find a way to get a guy who was your second most consistent player in these playoffs leading up to the NBA Finals in Kyle Korver going. Kyle Korver last year, they deemed him unplayable in the NBA Finals, but you had Kyrie Irving. So you had a guy that could hit threes, obviously, a guy who could create offense. Korver's made one basket in this series. He's been a defensive liability. In Game 1, he was forgetting who he was guarding, and so he was closing out close on Livingston instead of shading on the high pick and roll. And in Game 2, he was not even looking to shoot the basketball. They do not have enough shooting on this team in order to be able to do what the Cavs had done for 4 years, which is bomb you from 3 at home if Kyle Korver's not a big part of this. He was their best role player until the NBA Finals. He's been awful in this series. He's shooting 17% and being a defensive liability. They got to find a way to get him going in Game 3.
Usually LeBron takes that upon himself, and he figures out ways, but with the Warriors, they're switching all Korver screens. The Warriors are not concerned with anybody else on the team not named LeBron James. They'll switch all those. It's not a disadvantage Kevin Love versus Klay Thompson in the post. We saw some of those matchups. It's all about, in this case, once again, it's LeBron hitting the paint, finding guys, or LeBron hitting the paint, finishing at the rim. He's the only guy on this team that can really compromise the Warrior defense.
All right, Brian, thanks.
You got it.
Hang out with us for a little bit.
Man, we learned a lot.
That's an off-the-air joke that will stay off the air.
Coming up, why does Kevin Durant still need validation from his peers? Next on First Things First. We're back here with Brian Scalabrine and a little peek into KD, Kevin Durant. He found a stroke last night, 26 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists. The Athletic recently published an in-depth look into KD's decision to join the Warriors back in the summer of 2016. Durant said that, quote, validation from his peers was a big motivator in his decision to head west. Brian, what's your reaction to Durant's comments?
I cannot believe this, but then when you really think about it and you look back, it starts to make a lot of sense. Like, when you think about that Warriors series and how he sort of disappeared in Game 6 and Game 7 in the fourth quarter, like, this guy, as good as he is, an MVP, 4 scoring titles, been to the final, he just doesn't believe and sees himself as an all-time great dominant player, which is mind-boggling to me because I think he is an anomaly in the NBA. I think the only reason why the Warriors are a dynasty is because of Kevin Durant.
Well, and it also just gives us a little bit of insight to that a lot of the issues, whether it be insecurity or, self-esteem, that just regular folks watching this show deal with. People that are on TV or talking or whatever.
Yeah, but regular folks ain't averaging 30 points a game in the NBA.
But that's kind of my point, right? My point is no one's immune to this stuff. Now, that's not to say everyone deals with it, but everyone is eligible to deal with it. No matter your salary, no matter your profile, no matter your fame. You can't believe it, though.
No,
because you felt you were the opposite, right?
Yeah, like, I don't, like...
Give me a scouting report, because you're honest. I listen to your stuff. You have hot takes. Give me a scouting report on yourself. Like, on yourself, like who you were as an athlete and what your pro career consisted of.
Like, overly confident, thought I was, like... When I played... Which was like, if I got in rotational minutes, I was like, for sure we would win the game. Like, there's no question we were going to win. If I play, we're going to win. I'm on teams that win. I help the team win. When I don't play, I'm like, I don't understand why they don't play me. Like, I kind of get it. Like, outside of the 48 minutes, I get it. But inside of that, I'm like J.R. Smith. But remember that the clock's running down. Like, or the time and score. But I just don't believe, because when you're that good and you miss 2 shots, then how do you come down and take the next one? How does he come down and pull up 3 in the fourth quarter on LeBron if you don't believe in your game? I don't get that.
Here's the thing. Just real quick. That moment, and KD earned that moment, and I think he's one of the 25 greatest players in the history of this game. He deserved to have this type of iconic moment. But that moment, if we're being honest, is the anomaly of his career.
No question.
Like, this is a guy who, if you look at his fourth quarters in these playoffs, aside from one game at the end of the Houston series, he's been dominant through 3 quarters and then quiet in the fourth. That's what happened again last night. Now, they didn't need him last night. You mentioned the OKC Golden State series where he would struggle down the stretch of these basketball games. Like, now he has this moment. So that moment almost trumps everything and supersedes everything. But what I think KD's realizing is that moment didn't, whatever made him need to hear from Golden State, we want you, why we want you, that moment didn't fix it. You said it off the air like, so hold on, KD was looking at his free agency decision, not like I'm picking them, but that they're picking me.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Like, it doesn't make any logical sense. Like, last summer was really shocking. Burner accounts and the shoes that came out. Like, you won. You don't have it's a mic drop for you. You got MVP of the finals. You won the championship. You set the NBA in a motion in which you guys are going to be a dynasty. What do you have to prove to anybody else? It is. I don't understand why this is a continuing conversation for him.
Yeah, you just have to understand. Now, to me, I believe him because I've been around too many athletes that they have low self-esteem. Now, I know you can be surprised by that. Now, on the other extreme, I've been around guys who weren't as a talent, and you would have swore up and down. They're like, hey, coach, listen, I am the answer to every question. I am the solution. Like, yes, but I have seen a bunch of high achievers, and not only being athletes, people in the financial world, lawyers, doctors, that they don't have it. KD, he just happens to be in the public eye. The rest of these people, they're just somewhere else hiding, but they really actually do feel like KD. I believe it's nice. That's why I love sports, because we have a nice mixture of guys like you who can't do it, who think they can, and guys like KD who have every gift that God could ever imagine given to a basketball player, and they still have that insecurity. It lets you know the human side of sports.
But the other thing that was interesting about these quotes is he said, you know, my outlook on basketball is I'm still a kid. All right, so when KD made this decision, he was going into year 9. KD very recently, when he was asked about the difference between he and LeBron, he said, well, LeBron, listen, LeBron's an older player who's polished his game more. KD is going to be 30 years old before next season starts. KD is in year 10. Like, the idea that KD is not one of the younger players in the league. He's one of the elder statesmen of the league. And he was one of the elder statesmen of the league when he was headed to Golden State. Like, this isn't a guy picking his college via recruiting out of high school. Like, that's the other part of this. It's just the mentality of, KD, you're one of the guys that is teaching, not
one of the guys. Think about this. If he was on the Washington Wizards, they might be in the finals. If he was on Toronto, they might be better than Cleveland. If he was on Boston, they might be better. If he was on Houston, they would be better than the Warriors. Like, wherever he goes with his skill set. Now, maybe not because of his fourth quarter performances and now finding out stuff like this. Maybe he just doesn't believe in himself. But if you just look at the talent and you start placing him around the league, wherever he goes, that team's going to be in the finals. How can you be that good and not realize it? That makes no sense.
You also worry that this is the kind of stuff that can catch up to you, right? That can get in your own way. It hasn't yet. But when you start having those doubts, I feel like that creeps in. Is there any part of that you see manifesting itself into games, end of games, last shots of games, taking those shots?
People like this, when they get on the court, on the field, that's their haven. You'll see KD. If he get a mismatch at the elbow, he's going to turn around, look at him, and shoot over him just like a chair. So how they talk afterwards in dealing with real life is totally different how they play.
Oh, but
when they're on the field, they are comfortable. That's why when you see guys who go through tragedy, guys who go through even legal issues, they say, well, how did you do it? He said, man, on the court, that was the only time that I didn't have to think about that. The strongest thing he does in his life is play basketball.
Sure.
And that's probably the most comfortable setting for him.
I agree with you in large part, but to Jenna's point, I think we saw it in games 4 and 5 against Houston.
Hesitation.
The end of game situations where he doesn't have, whether it's the muscle memory of a bunch of success in those situations. You think those are two totally different things?
I think because of his personality and because now we're reading this, now we're trying to draw lines that, okay, this A plus B equals C. No, it doesn't necessarily mean that. He's a great basketball player. Now, if you try to put guys he's better in the first quarter, he's okay in the second quarter, man, he's a tremendous basketball player. There are no perfect players. Steph got holes in his game. LeBron's got holes in his game. Just the greater players just have less holes.
Well, I'll say this. If it's a close game and it's LeBron and KD, I was before thinking, like, KD could probably hold his own. But after reading that, I'm like, if Cleveland keeps this game close, they're going to have a better chance of winning.
I do think there is something of the way you carry yourself can help you in those spots at the end of games. I think it's why your guys' new guy, Kyrie, is so special in those spots. Like, Kyrie has the full faith and belief. Listen, I should have been a lead option on a team with LeBron. I absolutely should have my own team. And guess what I am
He
made
also
for?
thinks the world's flat.
Okay, right.
How confident do you got to believe you think the world is flat?
Exactly. Sometimes it's delusional, but it can be a healthy delusion that helps you late in the games. I think one of your favorite players of all time, Kobe. One of the reasons Kobe wasn't super successful on those game-winning shots, but he always thought, man, I was built to take these.
For sure.
I was made to take these shots, which I think some of that same mentality is the mentality that Kobe deep down thinks, man, I would have whooped Jordan's butt.
Yeah.
Like, I'm the best basketball player who's ever walked the face of this earth. Like, that part, and by the way, with LeBron didn't always have it. LeBron obviously didn't always have the belief of, hey, I want the ball at the very end. He has it now. I think this is all, you put it all together, because you mentioned the Twitter accounts and the shoes and the lack of feeling like I won, because he did win with his decision and the results from it. I think it better explains a lot about Kevin Durant, at least to me. I feel like I have a better understanding of why he is who he is.
It's mind-blowing to me. I just don't get it. I don't understand how you can be that good at your craft and not believe unequivocally that you are the greatest player of all time. If you're that good, you can make that argument if you're Kevin.